All right, let's talk corners in this draft. Just looking at the draft board, there's like 7 or 8 in our top 50. Again, when you see the PFF draft board compared to others, it's going to be pass game heavy, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to have a running back probably in our top, definitely not in our top 32, probably not in our top 50, not going to have a whole bunch of road grading guards ranked all that high, but you're going to see guys that affect the pass game. So we might have corner inflated a little bit compared to other draft boards, but this is a nice little group of corners in this class, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a good group. There's a lot of talent in there. There's some interesting prospects, but it also has like one clear superstar at the top of it.
Who is it? Let us know.
Well, so one of us is going to need to add the follow-up to his name. You want to handle that?
Yes.
I'll say, okay. So it's Jeffrey Okudah.
Matata.
There you go. Perfect. Ohio State cornerback. Another in the long line of Ohio State cornerbacks that seem to chunk out a first-rounder every single year.
They're just all good.
But he does look to be the most complete corner in this class. He doesn't seem to have any flaws to speak of. He's good at everything. He's fast. He's got athleticism. He's got the sort of smooth transition in all of his movements. And you add into all that he has the production. Like, he basically just didn't get beat ever.
I loved his footwork, as you mentioned. Like, when you see a guy, you like to see corners cover all the short and intermediate routes. That's where you get a chance to see just how well they're able to read receivers, react to the ball, and all that stuff. He is so smooth in and out of breaks, backpedal, all of that stuff. When you watch, we can sort out the plays because of all the PFF data. We can sort all the plays by his best plays, his worst plays, whatever it might be. When you're watching his best plays, like the first 6 are him just flying up and making a tackle in the flat. So that always stands out to me. Guy that knows how to play the underneath stuff. It seems simple, but when you see how quickly he closes on the ball, he's got the speed, he's got the transition skills. Like I said, I do like him quite a bit. So you agree? Clear?
Yeah.
A clear top guy here. What about some of those negative plays we were looking at with him? He just seems to, the way I described it, does he lose, we were asking ourselves, does he lose a little spatial awareness when he's got his eyes on the quarterback? There were multiple plays where there's some sort of route concept happening in front of him, and he's like just sitting there.
Yeah, I
not
think
doing anything.
There's a little bit of that. It seemed to be that when he actually started to focus on the quarterback, knowing that the ball was going to come out at some point, he didn't have that Richard Sherman-like ability. So you watch Sherman play, if you watch just him, he's basically got his eyes on the quarterback the entire time. And he covers, like he reacts to the routes in front of him basically out of his peripheral vision. Like he's literally
really
looking right in at the quarterback, and then he sees the receiver run at him and release into his cushion and all that kind of stuff, basically out of the corner of his eye. He's not actually looking at that guy at all, but he's able to move with that and flow with it without looking at it at all. Okudah seems to have the opposite. Like if he dialed in on the quarterback, he seemed to sort of zone in and get blinkers and lose what was going on around him and just kind of got lost in space. I think that's probably something you can work on. Like that Ohio State scheme focuses more on the man coverage than that zone stuff. So I think you will get better at that.
He played a lot off, too, in their system. Had that one play at free safety.
Sort of.
Kind of. He had to line up at free safety, and he made it to the opposite sideline to make a play on the ball.
Yeah.
I thought that was fine. So Okudah, the top guy, he's number 4 on our draft board as of right now. I don't anticipate that moving anywhere. I think. Do you have a guesstimate as to how fast he would run, or he'll run in the 40? Yeah, he's not like I don't think he's a 4.3 guy.
No,
I don't think he's 4.5.
Yeah,
sounds like 4.4s, right? Number 10 on our board is Kristian Fulton from LSU. Multiple years of good grading, 88 and then 84.7 this past year. And he looked like Renner was on him last year. He didn't come out. He actually outplayed Greedy Williams in 2018. Had a lot of off-field issues, but he's been the highest graded cornerback in the SEC by our numbers over the last 2 years.
Yeah, his grade is pretty absurd. I think he's got the highest grade over 2 years of any of this group, when you add them up. He is a corner who he doesn't seem to have really any flaws, but gets beaten a little bit more than you want. You know what I mean? It's hard.
I noticed he got beat mostly in breakers. What do you think? I mean,
yeah,
I know the numbers also back that up too, but
it was hard to dial in to a specific reason for it. Like, there was nothing you could look at and say, all right, that's the reason he's losing all these plays. It's just like he seems to have everything you want. The complete toolbox is there, but he just lost more often than you want.
Yeah. I think he's like Okudah as far as the footwork and quickness goes. Like, I think there's a lot of guys in this class where I don't think that's an issue. You know, they have this baseline ability to just move and stick with receivers. I do think he did a better job than Okudah with his footwork and off coverage. Like, his eyes were, tied to his movement, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And he could see the ball, he could play the ball, break on it, see the play, and just everything was kind of tied together. I just saw him on in breakers, slants and ins. Actually had a 58 grade on those plays, and he got out-muscled. Out-muscled a couple times. Just got choked up.
Huh.
Got out-muscled a little bit
again?
by. No.
Because you do that every now and again.
I didn't fill up my water, and I knew I might need it today.
Oh, no.
We're the interns. Interns, I need water.
Did you tell everybody about your medical emergency? You nearly lost a leg last night.
Thank God I'm still here. Both legs.
You played hurt yesterday on the basketball court.
I played through injury.
And it was one of the most sad and depressing things I've ever seen in my life.
It was my Willis Reed coming out of the locker room, banged up moment. Look it up.
No. I'll tell you what it was like, though. You want to know what it reminded me of?
What?
So, you ever see like a wildlife program where, there's been, somewhere along in the savannah, right, this like giraffe has been attacked by a herd of lions and it's escaped. But now it's gimpy, right? And it's done for because it can't like eat.
I remind you of a gimpy giraffe.
Pretty much, yeah. So maybe it's not the giraffe. Maybe it's more maybe you're the predator in this situation. So you're a lion that was in a battle, right, with another lion or attacked some kind of horned prey, right? The buffalo or whatever it is in this case jabbed you in the knee. So now you're this gimpy lion kind of walking around, and you know that this guy's done because he can't hunt anymore, so he can't eat. So he's just like 3 weeks away from starving to death in the savannah. That was you.
So you were all good up until the point where you think I'm going to die.
You'd take like 2 steps, and then you'd just be like, ugh.
Do you think the gimpy lion could have dropped 32 points, 15 boards, 7 assists, and 6 blocks?
Against the 4'8" guy that thought he could muscle up with you in the post, yes.
I dominated yesterday. Cincy Y has not seen a performance that good since Eric Eager hit 8 threes and then blew out his calf. Domination at the Cincy Y. And the other dude on the other team was talking, which made me get us out to a 19-2 lead.
I think you were handed a very favorable matchup by the idiocy of the team that was playing us.
Yeah, well,
like they had a
that's
guy.
what he gets for talking, saying he could cover me.
They had a guy that specifically called you out as somebody he needed to be one-on-one with. And that guy was what? Let's say 5'7", maybe?
He was tall. He was like at least 6 feet.
No, he was shorter than me, like significantly shorter than me.
He was the widest guy out there.
He was wide, but he was shorter than I am, and I'm 5'11". Yeah. So at the very maximum, he was like 5'9", right? And the 5'9" guy called you out as somebody he needed to match up with down low in the post.
Yeah, it seems like a stupid move.
It's a really stupid move, particularly when one of the guys on his team has actually proven in the past that he can do a reasonable job covering you down there.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's physical.
Right.
Makes some plays.
So instead, they let that guy cover me, and the short guy covered you and lost bad.
I played through injury.
You did.
I'm feeling better now. It started to feel better as it loosened up. My wife thought maybe I had a blood clot. We got that checked out.
Yeah.
Just to be safe. Just, better safe than sorry.
Ken's in here telling us to get back on topic. Does he have any idea what this podcast is?
Yeah, we don't have topics.
Look, if you don't...
Who wants us back on topic?
If you don't pipe down in there, we won't get back on topic for the rest of the show.
Everybody in the YouTube comments is talking to us and responded to this.
In a good or a bad way?
I glanced at it. Somebody's talking about a lioness or something. I think they're trying to, help your analogy.
Yeah, it was half formed really when I was thinking it through. I didn't.
Maybe our viewers will help tie it together. Are people leaving?
I need a little bit more time.
It's higher than ever
to flesh it out.
The people are coming in. All right, let's get to the next corners. Number 19 on the entire draft board is Trevon Diggs out of Alabama. I like the way Mike describes him.
Okay.
Diggs has that pterodactyl build you love to see at the cornerback position because he's listed at 6'2", 207. Long frame.
Has Mike been reading a little bit too much Lance Zierlein?
Lance has some good ones.
The pterodactyl build you love to see at the position.
Plays through a straw with tight skin.
So that's
just real. Those are scouting terms.
Apparently.
So Diggs is another guy that we're saying.
Pterodactyl build is a scouting term.
No, but he's long. He's got some length.
Yeah.
That's the point. 6'2", and all those teams that covet size, again, assuming the arm length is up at that 32+ range, which it looks like it will be, Diggs will be coveted by those teams.
He has this weird way. You know the way we talked about CeeDee Lamb? It never looked fast.
Yeah.
And it just looked sort of lethargic and slightly slow, and yet somehow it worked and he blazed past people.
Yep.
There's something of that to Trevon Diggs as well, where it just looks sort of lazy and slow. But I don't think it's the same thing. I think he almost plays with this like complacency and laziness until he has to snap and turn it on, and then he'll like burst to the ball or whatever. But there's so much to his game where lazy is the wrong word because it's it's a pejorative really, and it's got these negative connotations to it. But he plays with this just sort of easy,
lack of urgency,
like unconcerned
lack of
air about him that these guys. So you see it a lot of times when he's up in press coverage at the line, and receivers are trying to go all these quick moves and jab and trying to get him out, and he's just, all right, I'm just going to wait until you've done it.
That's patience.
Yeah,
I describe that as patience.
Sure. I don't think that's necessarily what it is, though.
What you're describing is patience. I think that's different from a lack of urgency, I would say.
It's just it's just a strange, relaxed way of playing that I don't see in many other corners.
Yeah, he had a good year at Alabama after being more of a part-time player in previous years. 90.1 coverage grade, forced an incompletion over 20% of his targets, allowed only 39% completions into his coverage. Now, the other number I like to add context to that, 17 drops or overthrows on that incompletion percentage. So that's a factor. Sometimes you kind of help force the overthrow with tight coverage. Other times you just kind of get lucky, but it just kind of helps adding a little bit of context there. But the numbers are good, and I think all the Bama corners generally play with slightly different technique as well, kind of like a shuffle technique when they're playing off. There's always like a little bit of a transition, and they always transition at different times in their career. Marlon Humphrey, transitioned pretty well. A guy like Kareem Jackson, I think, took a longer time. I mean, through the years, you've seen varying degrees of when Alabama corners get it at the next level.
And given his size, I could also see teams thinking about him as a safety.
And, do you think his speed's all right? Or do you think that's, his safety's in play in general just because of that?
No, I think he's got speed.
Yeah. All right, so he's the number 3 corner on the list. C.J. Henderson from Florida, another SEC guy, listed at 6'1", 191, only played 492 snaps last year, battled through injuries, and the tape wasn't great, but 80-plus grade in 2018 as a sophomore, allowed only 18 catches that entire season. Our ranking of him's based far more on sophomore tape than it is junior tape, but he's kind of a tools guy that, teams are going to like.
Yeah. He's got really good movement skills. You watch him play even just for a snap or two, and you see that it's there.
I feel like the cornerback position has gotten better in that regard. I feel like there used to be more of a drop-off between guys that can move well. I don't know if teams are starting to, colleges go through different phases where they're putting guys, there's a lot of guys when they come out of high school, they're either wide receivers or corners or safeties or whatever, and they're kind of at the mercy of the college team to put them wherever. Are we seeing a lot more good athletes playing corner, saying, hey, look, there's a million good receivers out there. I want to play corner. I want to stick out because I can be a first rounder. There's a reason why these guys are up here. They all have good size and movement skills. If you had that option coming out of high school, would you try to lean to the defensive side of the ball because of scarcity?
I don't know if it's scarcity, but they're also getting paid now. I mean, top tier corners get big money in a way that they didn't necessarily used to.
All right, who's after Henderson here?
It's the Utah kid, right?
Oh, yeah, Jaylon Johnson. Sorry, I lost the other. The page you put me on only goes up to the top 26. I got our top 100 pulled up here.
Yeah.
Jaylon Johnson. Another guy with pretty good size. Moves all right. I think we're starting to get a little bit further down the road. But he made a lot of nice plays. That entire Utah secondary was pretty loaded.
Yeah, and they're all like corners.
Yeah.
Even the safeties are corners.
I love that.
Two different safeties this year who had been corners before, plus the corner that they have coming out. In addition to Marquise Blair came out last year as a safety. That Utah secondary apparently has been stacked over the last couple of seasons.
We have Jaylon Johnson at number 26 allowed just 23 catches against Pac-12 competition on 52 targets last year. Another guy kind of got lost at the catch point a couple times, but he's always kind of in the hip of the receiver.
Yeah.
From what I saw, he didn't give up a ton of separation. Loses at the catch point. That was Marlon Humphrey in college. At Alabama, he never really gave up separation. He'd lose at the catch point a little bit more often. But the tough thing is staying with receivers, and Johnson does a pretty good job there. Stays in phase.
Yeah, there's a lot of corners that are kind of like that. That's interesting. You see a lot of times some of these college corners that have all the coverage skills, but are just physically not necessarily capable of dealing with the top end NFL guys. And I think we've actually been pretty good at pinpointing those guys coming out. They tend to grade really well in college because you don't have that many Julio Joneses at the college level. And then you hit the NFL, and if they have to cover those guys, they get exposed. But if you're able to scheme, if you have the luxury of a personnel and scheme situation where you can keep them away from them, they end up being pretty good NFL players. So Troy Hill, I think, is proven to be that kind of player. Undersized corner, has all the coverage skills. If he ends up matched up with a Julio Jones, he's giving up, like 40, 50 pounds and 5-6 inches in height. He can't win. But if you have a Jalen Ramsey on the roster and you can keep him away from those guys and give him the number 2, his coverage skills shine and he shows he's a good player. I think Darryl Roberts from the Jets was a bit like that as well. He always had the coverage and the movement skills, but he's one of the sort of physically weakest cornerback prospects I can remember seeing. Like both in routes when things got physical and at the catch point, he just always lost. I think you see some of those guys sometimes, but like ultimately I'd prefer that thing than the reverse. Like I'd prefer a guy that can cover, even if you know he's going to get out-muscled, than a guy who can physically get physical with anybody, but actually can't cover that well.
Yeah, the thing about this list right now is I'm going through all of our top guys. I have purposely tried to avoid figuring out where the NFL hype is. I do feel like we've seen fewer I guess we can't really say that. We saw Terrell Edmonds go in the first round 2 years ago. There's probably fewer first rounders that are just like out of left field in our world from what we've seen, the more we've had this college data. But there was a phase where it seemed like every corner who was 6'1" with decent straight line speed was instantly a first round pick. And we were like, man, he's actually not that good. Stop just drafting size and speed guys, get guys that can cover. And we would always have those 5'10", 5'9" guys that cover, like you said, and they found a role in the league, and maybe they're not a number 1 or whatever it is. So again, I don't know I might be missing a big name here as we go through this because I'm not paying attention to what Mel is saying right now, what Daniel Jeremiah is saying. I don't know if they're a bad corner, so to speak, projected in the first round. I'm just going by this list of guys who all have pretty good size, movement skills, and grading for us.
Yeah, I also don't know that there are that many of those giant corners this year.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember, there was that one year where you just had me watching a sequence of 6'2", 210-pound corners.
Right, your job was to
all
scout.
Of them sucked.
You had to scout all the corners, and I'm putting this list together of the guys that the NFL's coveting in the first 3 rounds, and you're like, oh, they all look terrible.
They're all awful. There aren't that many of those guys. Just scanning the sort of top, 20, 30 players from other people's lists, they're not. It's not full of guys that are 6'2", 210.
One guy that is 6'2",
but not 210.
Not 210.
Very much not 210.
Cameron Dantzler from Mississippi State, extremely skinny. Is he listed at, what's he listed at?
185?
185?
Yeah.
I mean, he looks, he's very skinny. Can definitely put on some weight. But he's got, he hit a nice little play against LSU down the field. He made some plays on the ball down the field. Reminded me a little bit of Kevin King from the Packers, who has that, he was 6'3", 190, and had that, high point, spectacular interception type of skills, which is a handful of plays a year, but Dantzler showed off some of those.
Yeah, and I think the thing that differentiates him from King is that even in college, King was this sort of, when he gets it right, it looks like Richard Sherman, and when he doesn't, it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like the high stuff was really good, but there was too much bad stuff. Dantzler doesn't have that much bad.
You know what?
It's more so the high stuff is kind of the same. It's like, yeah, he can high point the ball. He's got good ball skills.
Just didn't get whooped as much.
Right, but he didn't get beat as much as some of those other guys that have that same kind of skill set or same sort of look to them.
Ken, who's, our producer Ken, whose role seems to be telling us to get back on track and then comparing everything to Bengals.
Yes.
Tells us it's Dre Kirkpatrick, but even better.
Even better?
Better than Dre.
Yeah, but like even better. Like Dre's not good.
Yeah, but better. Like that right. That's the expected, not the even, right?
Yeah.
Just better than Dre. I did put one other very important note for Cameron Dantzler. You know what he has in his arsenal?
No.
Yes, you do. We watched it.
Okay.
A German suplex.
Oh, yes.
Huge German suplex.
Well, not huge. I mean,
it was kind of slow developing.
Yeah.
I mean, big reason why we want him to add weight is so we can have a smoother German suplex. Took him forever to muscle the guy over.
Quicker. I mean, the thing is, you're not going to get time to execute that at the NFL level.
No. Then you're probably going to get kicked out of the game.
Right. There's going to be bodies.
Here it is right here. Look at this thing.
Yeah. Once
really
you got him up.
slow.
Boom.
Linebacker spiked him.
See, here's the thing, right? If he had 20 extra pounds, he'd have got that done before 42 comes in
40.
here.
That was a double team move now that I look at it. I didn't realize that 42 came in.
But he ruins it. If he had 20 pounds of extra muscle, he'd have been able to execute that thing before 42 arrived, and it would have been all him. It would have been a solo suplex.
Also, the receiver didn't sell it. He jumped right back up. So obviously the impact wasn't that good. So that'll do it for the guys we have in our top 32. Guys that we have, it's not necessarily first-round grades, but they're in the top 32. 33 and 34 on the big board. Jeff Gladney from TCU, and then Bryce Hall from Virginia, a guy that came into the season as a potential number one. He had an incredible 2018, led all of college football in forced incompletions, and he wasn't playing all that well in 2019 before that ankle injury ended the season. Anything on Gladney or Hall?
Hall is intriguing to me because he kept getting beaten and then getting interceptions on plays where he was beaten. Because the college quarterbacks are so bad.
Right.
Like he'd be toasted by a guy and then the ball would be 5 yards underthrown, so we'd catch it. That'll help. But I'm really intrigued to see what he'll run as a 40, because he kept letting guys just blow right past him. And yet every now and again he wouldn't. And it wasn't because he, physically disrupted them. It's just every now and again he'd turn and run with a guy in phase perfectly. And it's like, well, that guy wasn't noticeably slower than the other receivers that blew right past you. It wasn't that, the guy is toasting you or top-level receivers from Alabama and LSU, and then suddenly you went up against a guy from, some crappy FCS team. Like, the strength of competition didn't seem to explain it. It's just every now and again he would show that, no, actually he's perfectly capable of doing that. Well, then why did he keep not doing it the other time? So I'm really intrigued to see if he runs like a particularly slow 40, and that is a serious concern, or if it's a technique thing that just needs to be cleaned up. Because outside of that, I think he can actually do a lot of good stuff. I think he's a really good zone corner, and I think he can play man. He can play press man at the line of scrimmage. It was the off coverage stuff that he struggled with, just letting guys eat into his cushion and blow right past him before he adjusted. But, when you consider that most teams in the NFL play zone coverage on most of their snaps, I think there's a real place for him to be a good player.
You think Hall could be a potential first rounder?
I would want to see what his 40 time is before I committed to that, because if he is just slow as hell.
Do you have an estimate on that too? Those are fun too when you just go in thinking this guy looks like he runs 4.5, plays like he runs 4.5 or whatever the number is, and you either see it or it's up or down and you kind of adjust in your head.
I honestly just can't tell. I honestly can't tell if he has that speed or if it's just a technique issue that needs to be cleaned up. I suspect that he's not the fastest guy in the world, but if he can run a decent time and show that he is actually pretty pacey, I think he could be a really good zone corner at the next level.
How about A.J. Terrell from Clemson? He got jinxed by Renner, essentially. Renner was in the middle of praising him in the middle of the national championship game.
Yeah.
Keep an eye, A.J. Terrell, underrated player. And then he goes on to give up about 1,000 yards that night, starting in the second quarter, and absolutely owned by LSU. But, got torched.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Did you have thoughts on Gladney, TCU corner?
Not really.
Not really?
No.
He's another one that has all of the speed and the movement skills, and is constantly in sticky coverage. Like, he's got the absolute archetype in terms of he's going to be in the guy's hip pocket every single play.
Yeah, he's got, I mean, I have some thoughts, but we've got him. Another guy we said on the skinny side, should run well, caught allowed only 19 catches on 78 targets on 10 plus yards down the field.
I like him a lot.
So about 20%, 25%.
Yeah, I think
that's legit.
I think we can boost him up.
You want to move him up?
A little bit.
Yeah, so where would you move some of these Renner ranked guys?
Well,
because he did this initial draft board, and we're going through with
I
our
think Gladney
suggestions.
could move up. I think he's got some skills.
Do you like him that much higher than some of these other guys?
I mean, I like him better than Jaylon Johnson, I think, and he's, 5th? I haven't seen enough of C.J. Henderson because the video system kept crapping out on me.
Yeah, Jaylon Johnson just didn't do anything spectacular. It was just, it's pretty good stuff all the way around. What I hate is watching a guy and not really having an opinion or a take. Is when there's nothing for me to say. I always say that was my Tyler Boyd problem. I just didn't have an opinion on Tyler Boyd.
Yeah.
Did some good things, did some not so good things.
You want to get rid of me and get back to more great PFF YouTube content? All you have to do is push that button right there and subscribe. Thanks for watching.